Welcome to West of Tulsa. All right, we're going to get political today. No, not what you think. We're not going to start yelling at each other and talking about the upcoming election. None of that stuff. Now, we're going to talk about a president, at least in recent decades, for us old guys, we remember it.
Yep.
Huge car guy, and we're going to talk about some of his vehicles and a little bit of background about them. And luckily, I have a connection to those vehicles, thanks to the guests we're going to have today. And if you want to see some of these vehicles, we're going to talk about them where you could see at least a few of them. They're hard to get to, but we're going to explain that as well coming up. All right, let's introduce Dana Newquist. Welcome back.
Thank you, CJ.
You've been on the show a few times, haven't you?
Yeah, it's nice to be here. It's always nice to be with you and Dan. And
welcome.
Anyway, we're happy to be here.
Yeah, it's kind of a slim pickings today. I mean, it's me.
It's a minimal staff today.
Yeah, everybody's
for sure.
on vacation, I guess.
Yeah.
All right, but we're working here, and we're going to talk about
Working hard.
the 40th president of the United States.
Yes.
President Ronald Reagan.
Yes.
And you had a connection with him. Talk about that a little bit.
Well, let me reach back a little bit. My mother-in-law and father-in-law, Duty Taylor, was part of the committee. She was in the Republican women's group, and she was maybe not the head, but she was definitely one of those women that helped promote President Reagan even before he became president as a governor. So she got to know him very well and the family. And by virtue of that fact, I got to meet President Reagan. I got to meet Nancy and Michael and anyway,
the
so
whole family,
that goes back to about 1990 after he was out of office.
Okay, and you've stayed connected with the Reagan.
Well, I'm
Center
connected. I'm connected with Young America Foundation and the Reagan Center and Reagan Ranch. Yes.
And that's how this all came about with some of the vehicles.
Yes.
Maybe 6 years ago, 5 years ago,
something like that. I was looking at that, and it's at least 5 years ago.
So Dana calls me up and he goes, "Hey, we've got this project we're working on, Reagan's vehicles. So the Reagan Ranch, which is high above the Gaviota coast along the Santa Barbara coast, it's located way up in the mountains, right at the top, right?
Right.
So a lot of his vehicles are located there, and then I guess there's some down at the Reagan Center down off State Street in Santa Barbara.
There's one.
Just one, the Jeep.
Yes.
Yeah. And so you called and said, "Hey, we started this project to at least kind of not so much restore, but just mothball, protect and preserve these vehicles because they've been sitting there for many years after Reagan passed."
Correct.
And the last time he was up at the ranch, too.
Yeah, so what I did is I gathered up a group of guys that wanted to help. If you remember Woody's Detail and some of his guys, you were there.
Yeah.
I was there. Roy Miller was there. And we were all there basically to work. So what the main function of us to be up there was to drain all the fluids from the vehicles, making them inoperable, to preserve them, and also to clean them up and detail them. So that's why Woody was there with his men.
And just protect them a little bit.
Yes.
Yeah. Is it, the last time the Reagans were up at the ranch had been quite a few years before that.
Correct.
And so they just sat there.
They did.
They were just sitting there in garages and little sheds and taking on dust, and the critters were getting to them and that kind of thing.
Correct.
So this was just how did this all come about? I mean, whose idea was it to preserve these vehicles? Otherwise, knowing that they would just, fall apart at some point.
Well, I'm part of the Coweta and Donald Barker Foundation, and we work with Young America Foundation, and they wanted a grant. They submitted a grant to do this, and it was submitted to the Barker Foundation. It was approved, and the money that was approved was for the function of restoring or preserving these vehicles to go up there and pay for the men that went up there, and it went a little bit beyond that because they also had a tractor up there, if you remember.
Oh, yeah.
And the tractor had not been operated in maybe a decade or more. So, and that is a very useful piece of equipment up there. So they wanted to get that going also. So that was part of this also.
You know, you talked about we were all supposed to be up there working.
Yes.
But it was hard to work because you're surrounded by so much history and you're fascinated by everything that's up there. One, it's gorgeous. But I found myself just, looking at, say, the Jeep. He has, a 60, was it years? 62? Yeah, the 62 Jeep, which was his favorite.
Yeah.
It was hard not to sit there and just stare at that thing and just think, this was President Reagan's favorite vehicle. And he used these things, even the tractor he used up there at the ranch.
So, you say he was quite a car guy. Well, actually not. He was a car guy in the respect that the cars that he liked were useful to him.
Right.
They were all work vehicles.
He wasn't showing up at Cars and Coffee on Sundays.
Oh, no. No.
Or hot rodding anything up there, no.
And, most of these vehicles were gifts. Two of them were from Nancy, and that's the red CJ, which he loved.
Yeah.
And then she also gave him the Jeep Scrambler. And he thought that was a little too fancy for him. So
he didn't put many miles on that one.
It has no miles on it.
Yeah, so that's the one that's down the Reagan Center in Santa Barbara. You can see that one.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the other one, the 62 Jeep, which was his favorite, Nancy gave that to him when they had their Malibu ranch.
That's correct.
And I think it was like a seafoam green or something, and then the National Guard painted it red for him or something like
correct.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, at some point, Dan, I know you've got some of these.
We can bring it up.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you want to bring up the photos, we can start talking
it.
about these things. And there it is right there. If you're listening on the podcast, you'd have to go to our YouTube channel. But that right there, that's his favorite vehicle. Yeah.
Yes.
And he used that. I mean, in my understanding, he rolled it once, didn't he?
I don't know that, but it's possible. But I think one of the funniest clips that you could see is his ride with Barbara Walters up the ranch in this vehicle. She was not used to this rough riding, so to speak. And she made a lot of comments about the Jeep and how rough it was. And, if you watch that clip, it's actually hysterical, I think.
It's worth like Googling. You'll find it on YouTube, and it's on there. Just Barbara Walters, Reagan Ranch. It was like in the 80s. He was still president when they shot that.
Oh, yeah.
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 Yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, again, one of the reason I bring up, I'm reflecting back on some of these stories when we were up at the ranch, but I asked about one whole side was kind of wiped out on that thing, and one of the guys who was, and I don't know who it was, but he's one of the caretakers up there at the ranch, said, yeah, at one point it rolled. I'm like, oh, okay, and then they banged it back into place, and off it went as a work Jeep again. But the one thing that was really interesting, one of the best stories I heard about that Jeep was that President Reagan would explain to people the reason why the seats were so hard was because there were a couple times where he walked away to go work, chop wood or whatever it was. He came back and the horse had eaten the seats. And so they had to repair the seats a couple times because I guess the horse had just munched on the seats.
That's a good story. I had not heard that, but okay.
That's a Willys Jeep. That's I didn't put the photo up, but there's a photograph of the manufacturer's plate, and it's definitely a Willys Jeep. It's not a modern fake Jeep. It's a real Jeep, World War II Jeep.
Yeah, that thing you can tell was used.
Oh yes. Well, he had. There's only actually 3 vehicles that are operational up there. And one you don't know about. One you were there to see.
Right.
And now the tractor works.
Right.
Okay. And let's see, what else has he got?
It's not with a Hummer.
The Hummer's, that's operational.
It is, okay.
It
that
is.
was a Secret Service vehicle up there.
It was.
That was used by Secret Service to patrol the property.
Correct.
Right, okay.
And I was able to get the ranch a Growler. It's called an M1151 Growler. And how that came about, I'm always looking at different sites with vehicles on it. So I came across this Growler on eBay. And I thought, God, that's pretty interesting. It's a Jeep-like attack vehicle. And it was used by the Marine Corps, built by General Dynamics at $250,000 a piece. Wow. And how that was transported is it had hooks on all four corners. And a helicopter would pick it up, place it to wherever they were going, put it down, and it was used as a sneak attack vehicle.
So they were prepared for anything up there.
They were.
And the Hummer had a turret. I mean, it's empty now.
Yes.
But it had a turret.
It did.
Yeah, and I remember, sneaking into that thing and taking pictures, and all of a sudden I look up, and I'm looking at a turret. I'm like, wow, I wonder what went in here. There's a good shot of the Hummer. Yeah.
Yes.
And that was probably, I think it was right before they cleaned it up. I think I walked around, I was taking pictures of it. Now, that's back when he was president, and that's the Secret Service detail right there.
It is, yeah. Well, they didn't pay too much attention about detail other than the detail on it.
Yeah.
Not about the Jeep itself. It was a useful vehicle.
Yeah.
Now, is the Growler physically larger than the Hummer?
Oh, no. It's about half the size.
Half the size of the Hummer.
If you looked at the Growler, it would be about the size of a normal Jeep, a little bit bigger, and much heavier in construction.
Is it four-wheel drive?
Four-wheel drive,
okay.
And actually the front and back wheels turn.
Oh, like crab.
Right.
They crab, so you can get into crazy places.
And heavier probably because it's got the armor metal on it.
It does, and it's got an automatic transmission. And
unusual for a military vehicle.
Yeah. And it is very fun. I've driven it many times, and the ranch personnel up there love it, and they take some of the kids around in it.
Yeah.
So it's much more fun than, let's say, the Hummer. Hummer's pretty much enclosed. This is an open Jeep kind of thing.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the Hummer was interesting. I was curious what that ended up looking like when it was done, because when I saw it, it had probably, I don't know, 20 years of cobwebs and dust on it.
Correct.
Yeah, probably turned out pretty well.
Yeah.
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 I haven't seen it since. I have to go back. You have to take me back up there so I can see the finished product.
Yeah.
Speaking of, I mean, not anybody can just go up to the ranch.
No, it's the purpose of the ranch basically is to show youth the ranch and really what President Reagan represented and how he lived up there. When you go up there, your vision of a place that a president would live is totally different from what you see.
Yeah.
The house is very small. The house has a totally dated kitchen and everything else. The bedroom, living room, everything's so it's very
Understated.
Western.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Understated. And
It's literally a ranch.
Yeah.
it is a ranch.
That's like what I grew up on. I grew up on a horse ranch. Yeah.
And what's kind of comical about their bed is tied together. It's two twin beds tied together with zip ties. And because Reagan was fairly tall, twin beds aren't very long. So for him, they put a little stool for his feet. So, I mean, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But that's what they did.
That's what they did. And you have a funny story. I think you told it to me about Gorbachev. Was it Gorbachev who went up there?
Yeah.
That's a great story. You tell that?
Yeah. When Gorbachev came up there, they wanted to be kind of courteous to him. And the biggest problem with Gorbachev up there, I mean, if you're a cowboy, if you're a Westerner, you want to have a certain look, obviously.
Yeah.
Well, Gorbachev put his hat on backwards.
His cowboy hat.
His cowboy hat.
Yeah.
And, they were laughing about it, but very kind of secretively.
You didn't want to piss off the leader of Russia.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So anyway, that was kind of cute.
Or should I say USSR? Yeah. Back then. And then I also heard, too, that he got there and he looked around and he said, well, where's the main house?
Correct. Yeah.
Is he? Yeah. He there's no way he could believe that the cabin which is really tiny.
He was looking for the Kremlin up there, and it wasn't there.
It wasn't there.
That's hilarious.
Oh boy, we have another photo, and you know what? What's interesting is he had, and I had no clue about this. I don't know which one's going to pop up next, but
it's the Brat.
Okay, that's the one I was going to talk about. So he had a Subaru Brat up there.
He did, and that was a gift also. And he only used that very sparingly up at the ranch. He didn't want to be seen in the Brat because it was a Japanese car.
Oh, that's right.
On the road.
That's right.
So he would not use that. And I don't know by law or by tradition or whatever, presidents are not usually allowed to drive a car. They're usually chauffeured.
Yeah, except on the ranch.
Except on the ranch, yeah.
Well, I forgot all about that. That's right. Back then, the Japanese versus American-made car, that was a big deal.
Big deal, yeah.
So, yeah, if he was caught driving around in a Subaru Brat, the Democrats probably were going to jump on that one pretty quickly, right?
I guess so. Yeah.
Oh boy! And if on the side of the Brat, it also said Rancho del Cielo. I mean, it was painted in beautiful script, like gold script on the side. Beautiful. Yeah, there it is, right there.
There it is,
Rancho del Cielo.
I thought this was cool because it's the registration.
Yeah.
Which 2121 Avenue of the Stars. That's obviously his agent's office or an office he had in Hollywood or
probably.
something.
That's the pink slip right
that's
there.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
Now, which one? Oh, that's for the Subaru. Okay.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And his total fee was $333.
Yeah. I did have a question. It's El Rancho del Cielo. Is that up off Camino Cielo? East Camino Cielo? West Camino Cielo? Is it up there? It's not up there.
Off Refugio.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
It's technically Santa Ynez then, right? It's not considered Santa Barbara? Is it considered Santa Ynez?
I would say it's probably Santa Ynez.
Yeah.
Most people don't know this, but Refugio goes all the way through to Highway 154 in Solvang.
Down the backside.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, however, if you approach it from, let's say, the Solvang side, the road is really rough getting there. Not that the road is beautiful getting there from 101 either.
Yeah.
But anyway, it can be accessed either. And, during the pandemic and everything, and also there's been fires up there.
Yeah.
So oftentimes one side or the other will be blocked off due to fire or whatever.
Over the years, they have had a couple of close calls up there.
Yes, very. Yeah.
And that's one of the first places the big bombers go to drop their retardant is to protect
the ranch,
the old Western White House.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What else we got coming up? Let's see. Oh, so this was interesting. This is just a ranch truck.
It is.
But I love this photo with the two of them together on it. The old Ford Ranger.
The Ford Ranger, yes.
Now, what is this? What year is this? 85.
Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah.
Yeah, there it is. That's just a ranch truck, a work truck. Those are like the ones I grew up with. They just use it and put hay in it and haul stuff. And
right. And
great.
that is not a vehicle that we worked on because it's a day-to-day kind of vehicle.
Yeah. And you can just tell by the photos. Again, I took these photos when we first got there, so you can see all the dust and cobwebs all over the back of it. And when I sat in the driver's side, there were cobwebs everywhere. I mean, they're all on the inside. I think when I went to open up the glove box, just fell open. I mean,
you're lucky rats didn't
exactly.
come out of there.
Yeah. But it was fun to see it though, because again, you're sitting up there thinking, oh, this belonged to the Reagans,
right?
That's I just loved it up there. There's a great shot of
that's his
tractor
tractor
with the tractor.
Yep,
and that's when you said you guys got going.
We did.
That's a Ford, I believe.
That's a Ford tractor.
It's a Ford tractor, yeah,
for sure.
Almost see the Ford on the side.
Now I'm curious, Dan. Do you know much about tractors?
Very little.
I know a little because it's interesting. That is a Ford. And then if you go on farms today or heavy equipment sites and so on, you see New Holland. New Holland is a Ford. So I'm just curious if there was like, the consumer, the small stuff was Ford and the big stuff's New Holland, or I don't know.
Well, as you can kind of see, the arms going forward on the front, this has a shovel on the front. And for a ranch, especially up there in that location, to have that is a big deal, a big plus.
Oh, yeah.
Well, one of the biggest problems that this tractor had is the hydraulics were out. So it was, there you go, it was totally inoperable. So we had to pay for the restoration of the hydraulics on that and also a service on the vehicle itself.
And that was a gift as well.
Yes.
Now, who gifted that to him?
That I don't
forget.
know.
Okay, I forget. I'm just racking my brain trying to think who it was, but I know that was a gift as well.
Yep.
I think it was from one of his good friends, a congressman or somebody like that. I don't know. I think I have it on our website, but maybe I'll remember it. But
yeah, it's having a tractor on a ranch. I have a friend who's actually moving out of state to the east coast, but 2-3 acre property. He's never had a property that size. And I was just telling him, I was like, you need to look into getting a Kubota or a little, having a tractor on any kind of property is just, pulling stumps, weed abatement, pulling stuff out when it's snow, mud. I mean, there's just so many things you can do with it. So useful. And then, of course, if you have animals,
And somebody has to be up there maintaining that property, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Do they use that tractor? I would imagine.
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
they do now. Yeah. Sure.
As for years, they couldn't.
No.
Yeah. We have any other vehicles in that lineup over there?
I'm looking. Yes, we do. We have.
Is this
let me pull this one up? Hang on.
Is this the old Model T?
Yes.
Because that wasn't Reagan's, but it was. You can explain that one. There it is. Right
so, let me give you a little background as to how this happened. And what you're seeing right there is a 1914 Model T, Ford Model T, and in the background is President Reagan's childhood home in Dixon, Illinois. So, as CJ knows, he and I were directors of the Murphy Auto Museum. There it is. And this particular vehicle was part of the display at the Murphy Auto Museum. And it was owned by a couple, Charles and Hisako. And the board of directors and actually the director of the museum, we all decided that we were going to close the Murphy Auto Museum, and the date was going to be end of July. And that decision was made earlier in the year. That's this year. So having known very well Andrew Coffin, who's head of the Reagan Ranch, he had told me he was looking for a 1914 Model T.
just happened to
a 3-door.
Okay.
And he said, "Do you know where there might be one?" And I said, "Well, what do you want one of those for?" He said, "Well, Reagan's dad owned one at the Dixon home in Illinois, where he grew up." And I said, "Oh." And they wanted to make everything as authentic as they could at the Dixon, Illinois location. So anyway, I said, "Well, I do know of a 1914. It's called a 3-door touring Model T." And so I said, "Yeah, I actually do know where there's almost exactly what you're looking for." So I reached out to Charles, the owner, and I said, "Charles, you've got this 1914 Model T. Would you consider donating it to the Reagan Ranch?" I was surprised by his answer. He said, "Wrong party." And I said, "Well, Charles, this has historical significance, and I think you might take some pride in the donation." He says, "Well, let me think about it." So anyway, as the time went and it was getting closer to the close of the museum, he had called David Neal and he said, "David, I want to sell that." So he put a sale price on it, and it was an absolute ridiculous sale price. I think $79,000.
Oh boy! Oh wow!
Where something like this is probably worth half of that, maybe.
Did part of the sale include this? Reagan's father used to own something like this.
No,
I didn't think. I thought. No. Well, maybe I thought it was the premium that he was putting on the
no,
on the price. I don't know.
So anyway, we get down to maybe 2 weeks before the close of the museum, and of course it didn't sell. He calls me up. He said, "Is that offer still on the table?" And I said, "Charles, yeah, it is." He says, "I'll do it under 2 conditions." Okay, what's that? He said, "You got to get me an appraisal for it that I approve. And if I approve the appraisal, then I'll consider it." So luckily, we had Jim Polk as one of the directors. So I called Jim and I said, "Jim, can you do an appraisal on this 1914 Model T?" He said, "Sure." And Jim did it gratis for us. The appraisal came in at $39,000.
Half the price, yeah.
And which still is high, in my opinion. Anyway, so it was presented to Charles and Hisako, and they accepted it. Called me back, and they said, "Yes, we will donate our 1914 Model T to the Reagan Ranch or Young America Foundation." I said, "Great." So they asked me how they could deliver the pink slip. And I said, "Well, you can send it to me." And he says, "No, I don't trust that." Okay. So I gave him my address. He said, "We go up to the casino in San Ynez every week. And on our trip to the casino, how about if we drop it off?" I said, "That'd be fine."
There you go.
So I got to meet Charles. He handed me the pink slip, which I handed over to Andrew Coffin. Anyway, so then from that, I called my friend Clark Rowan, who has Rowan Transport. And I called Clark and I said, "Hey, would you pick up a 1914 Model T and deliver it to Dixon, Illinois?" Clark is an old friend that I've been dealing with. That's all he does is transport vehicles coast to coast. And he says, "Sure." He says, "Any significance about this?" I gave him the story. He's a veteran, a Marine, and he was all excited about this. So the premiere of the Reagan movie with Dennis Quaid
Just came out.
Yep. It actually came out on the 30th of August. And we actually got to see it before that, which was kind of neat. Anyway.
Did you like it, by the way?
Oh, it's fantastic.
Okay. We figured we'd throw in a movie review.
It was really fantastic. So anyway, they wanted to have that vehicle for the premiere in Dixon, Illinois. Now, Dixon, Illinois has a little theater built in 1922. And I don't know what the seating is. Maybe it's got 2,000 people or something like that. Well, the week or week and a half that it premiered in Dixon, 30,000 people saw that movie in that theater. And it's a community of, I don't know, 10,000 people maybe.
Wow.
So, everybody in that surrounding area saw that movie at Dixon, Illinois.
Well, if it's that old, too, that would have been a theater that Reagan probably would have gone to as a boy or, before he got into acting and all that.
Right.
So, pretty exciting.
So
this is in Dixon, that house?
That's in Dixon, Illinois, and that is the donated 1914 Model T.
Wow.
Is that house part of the museum, or is it just someone lives there now, someone privately owns it?
Oh, no, it's only a museum.
Oh, okay, so that house is the museum.
It is.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it has a single-car garage where that Ford resides.
Wow. Oh, cool.
Yeah.
It's like going back 100 years, right?
It does.
Very cool.
It's beautiful condition, that Model T.
It is. Yeah, it's in very nice condition. In fact, what they want to do with that is whenever there's, mostly veteran kind of like Memorial Day, 4th of July, Veterans Day, they like to take this out and
bring it out
get
in the
into
parades,
the
right?
parade, and yeah.
That's cool.
That's what they're aiming to do. So it's operational.
That's a perfect marriage right there.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah, and you set it up.
Yeah.
Matchmaker.
Yeah, thank you.
And there was some bipartisanship thrown in there as well.
Oh, yeah.
Reached
Told
across
you
the aisle.
we're getting political today.
Reached across the
Reached
aisle.
across the aisle. Was it a Democrat that donated a card to?
Yeah, and they're very
Republican
happy
president.
about this.
Yeah.
So it turned out real
It
well.
did.
It's for a good cause. And anyway.
Okay. So I'm curious. So we've talked about all the vehicles. I mean, a great history. I mean, all these vehicles just have such a great history. So most of them are up at the ranch, and they stay there.
They all but the Scrambler.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now the Scrambler, if anybody wants to see these, they could see that in Dixon, right? They can see the old Model T in Dixon.
They could.
And then they can go down the Reagan Center on Lower State Street in Santa Barbara
And see the Scrambler.
and see the Scrambler.
And all the other memorabilia there.
Right, right.
And for the rest, they have to watch West of Tulsa and watch this episode.
Exactly.
Or
They
you're not
could,
gonna
yes.
see 'em. Right.
Put in a plug, Dan.
That's right. Well, and you
exactly.
can listen to this, but if you really want to see it, you have to go to our YouTube channel.
Yep.
And I should say, and I'll take this opportunity to say, if you do go to YouTube, what you do is you go search West of Tulsa show.
Yes.
If you go just West of Tulsa, you get some country guy.
You get a whole bunch of music videos for some country
yeah.
song called West of Tulsa.
Yeah.
Yep.
Boy, anything else about the Reagan vehicles? I mean, by the way, I know we did time this because of the election. We figured, what the heck, right? We're going to do a little political show. Yeah,
yes,
but
definitely
bring President Reagan into it.
And, I don't see it that way at all. If your audience would go back and look at the Barbara Walters Reagan ride, and she was known to be quite liberal, okay?
Yeah.
But the air in the, I'd say, nation was so much different than it is today. It's so much more divided.
Absolutely.
But she as a reporter went up to spend the time with the president, and they were extremely cordial.
Yeah.
So, there's a huge difference, and that's 40 years ago.
Yep.
Which is not a long time.
Well, that's why we decided this would be a really nice, uplifting thing.
It's a presidential episode, not necessarily a political episode.
In the environment we're in right now, this feels good.
Yes.
And you know what? It also answers another thing. The comment I made about Charles when I first approached him, and he said, wrong party.
Yeah.
And, that was kind of a knee-jerk reaction from him, I think.
Yeah.
And then after things kind of settled in and he kind of got the significance of this, it just kind of melted away.
Sure.
Yeah, let's do
the
it.
sense of pride there, too. I mean,
Yeah.
preserving a little piece of history right there.
I think it's huge.
Yeah. Do you think he's going to go out to the Dixon and see his Model T? Or
Hard to say. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, I think we've covered Reagan.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming out and talking about all that.
Yeah.
We have some updates also about Platypus, right?
Yeah.
Oh.
So you'll remember, for our listeners and viewers, you were on, I don't know, 5 months ago. It was really
Something
one
like
of the first shows we did.
Yes.
We had you on.
Yes.
And we talked about your project that you've been working on for quite a while, Platypus.
Now 5 years.
Has it been 5 years?
5 years, yeah.
Oh, jeez.
Wow.
Wow.
So I'm about to go over to see Bruce right now, who's working on Platypus, and one of his biggest projects in Platypus is, I don't know if you've got a picture of it here.
I do have
Dan.
a couple pictures. Yeah, let me bring those up. Hang on
So
just a sec.
what he's working on right now is called the stabilizer. And the stabilizer is basically the fin on top of Platypus. So this vehicle, there it is. Okay, you can kind of see the stabilizer in the back end. But this started its life as 1948 Republic CB airplane. And when I first saw it, it was up in the rafters, and it was pretty ratty, you might say. And this was over at Funky Junk, which is over in Fillmore.
Yeah. Great place.
It is. Anyway, the guy who runs Funky Junk, his name is Steve, and what he does is he builds all kinds of things for the movie industry. And he had plans for this frame, So, and it sat there. I saw it for 5 years or something. I kept on bugging him to sell it to me. And nope. One day I went in there just before Christmas time, 6 years ago. And he says, well, okay. And I said, all right. And we settled on a price, and he delivered it over to the old Murphy Auto Museum, and we started working on it there. The problem with the Platypus at the time, I brought Bruce over, and I was very fortunate to find him. He is a metal fabricator extraordinaire.
He's an artist.
He is really an artist. So anyway, he looked at the frame, 1948 aluminum frame, and he says, I can't work with this. I said, what do you mean? He says, it's way too fragile. And it had dents all over it. And it was, anyway, so what had to happen is we got all fresh, all new aluminum and had to form this to see what you saw up there that Dan showed you. So all of that is all hand-formed aluminum. So, and you had to have a great craftsman to do that, and that was Bruce Terry. So anyway, my connection, I was very jealous when you say I got beat by Chip Foose with his podcast. Yeah, and he beat me, and I knew Chip since he was a little kid. Anyway, when I was starting to work on this, I approached Chip, and I showed him what I had, and he said, wow, interesting. And I said, Chip, I've got 1,000 choices of powertrain to work on, to build this with. And I said, I'm stuck. I don't know what I should use. A lot of guys would use a new Chevy or
like an LT.
An LT. Yeah. And he says, look, it's a 1948 Republic CB. He says, let's go vintage. I said, vintage? He says, yeah. Why don't you get a flathead Ford or Mercury and build it up, and we'll use that. So I found a 1948 Mercury. I had the pink slip from the car that it came out of. So we completely rebuilt the engine. We used a C4 trans on the back of it with an adapter. There it is right there. And so it's mid-engine. It's got an automatic transmission. It's quite unique. As you can see, it's kind of suspended in the middle. And we're hoping that works out pretty well.
Yeah.
So
it's going to sound good.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It'll sound good.
I love the sound of the flathead.
So it's going to be a very interesting vehicle. We think the powertrain is going to work beautifully, and now we're probably 4 to 5 minutes away from the finish of the vehicle.
Minutes?
4 to 5 months.
Okay, there we go.
So
I was about to say 5 minutes. I was going to stretch out the show here an extra 5 minutes
over there
so we can go over and see it. Yeah.
So what really has to happen is the Platypus is in 2 pieces right now. The body is off of it. And so that's over at Bruce's.
You guys have been doing wiring on it, right?
Well,
Electrical?
that comes next.
Oh,
okay. So it's in 2 pieces. Now, the frame is over at Mike Gossard's, over at the old Murphy Auto Museum. And he's got a plummet for brakes. He's got to put the exhaust in it. He's got to wire it, put the gauges in it, and also the cooling system. So that's still quite a bit of work.
Yeah.
And Bruce is finishing up on the body parts.
So you were talking about the stabilizer.
Yes.
So I know from talking to both of you, Bruce, talking about there's been a debate over what to do with the stabilizer. How high is it going to be?
Correct.
What form is it going to be? And have you guys decided?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
It's finalized.
Okay.
So the stabilizer was much taller at first. And we kind of looked at it and we thought, let's make it maybe at the tallest, maybe a foot off the top of the airframe.
Okay.
So going back. And I think it looks pretty neat.
Yeah. Any consideration at any point to make it like a chitty chitty bang bang where it really did fly and then you could land and then
Oh yeah, yeah, and you're gonna fly it.
Oh, you're in trouble if that's the case.
In the parade,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Yeah.
Now, the stabilizer, is there a actual function for it, or it's mainly cosmetic?
All cosmetic.
It's cosmetic. Okay,
Yes.
so it doesn't need it like to keep the back end from fishtailing or anything crazy like that.
No, but there's a picture that I'd like to. It's not a picture; it's a small video that I'd like to show you at some time, whereby Bruce has he's got it right now on 4 wheels, just the body, and this shows him picking up the whole body, from the front end, and the whole body in total weighs 200 pounds, 250 pounds.
It's amazingly light.
So that's like
It
this
is
shot.
very light.
That's like that original shot, right? It's like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because last time we saw it didn't have wheels on it. So you put the wheels on it. Are those the final wheels?
Yes.
Okay. What are those wheels off of?
These are Kelsey Hayes wheels, and that would be contemporary with the 1948.
Okay.
And the windows are plexi, right?
They are.
Okay. Well, that also helps with the weight.
Yep.
Yeah, no, it looks great. I mean, I know I'm excited to see it go down the road.
Oh,
so I can
yeah.
only imagine what you're going through, and Bruce.
Yeah, and I've shown this obviously to Chip Foose. He's excited about it. I've showed it to Jay Leno, and he wants to see it when it's done. So it's getting a bunch of press.
Yeah.
That
In 5 months, that's pretty close. When you've
It's
been working
close.
out 5 years,
Yeah.
or 5-6 months is pretty close.
it's close. Yeah,
You're in the home stretch.
I am.
All right, that's exciting.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah, we got an update on Platypus. We
Yeah.
talked about all the cool Reagan vehicles.
Anything else car-wise, Dana, we should talk about that's popping up on your radar up there?
I looked at another car, which is a 1924 Delage, which was over at the Murphy Auto Museum.
I know, yeah, I know which
Very
one that is.
cool,
Yeah, it
very
is.
cool. And I kind of passed on that.
I was about to say, that's in your wheelhouse, isn't
It's
it?
in my wheelhouse because I like that era. It has 2 problems. Number one, it's a French car, very pre-war, 1924.
Can't spell it.
And, well, I mean, I can, you can, you can't spell it. Yeah. Okay. But, yeah, I can't spell the parts for it.
So I was
either.
going to say,
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
parts would be a
Yeah.
challenge.
Yeah.
Like, you'd have to
Parts
have Bruce
is
fabricate you
huge.
parts, right?
Parts would be huge.
Yeah, a lot of CNC you'd have to do and fabrication.
Yes.
and- yeah.
So I thought, with the Platypus going on, I got plenty on my hands, so I don't need another project.
Well, and I was about to say, if there's anybody who can handle a project like that, I know you built a Franklin from
Yeah.
basically nothing. It was scrap, and then you built it up. It's a gorgeous car.
Yeah.
So you
it's-
can handle it. There's no doubt about that. It's just too much on your plate.
Yes.
Yeah.
True.
I know there are people out there right now Googling Delage. How do you spell that thing?
Delage.
There you go. See?
Yeah.
He actually knows. You were faking it. You knew all along how to spell Delage. All right. Is that it? I appreciate it. It's always fun to have you in studio.
Well, the only reason I came down here is really to try and beat Chip Foose.
Are you still going to go another viral clip?
I need a viral clip just to keep me going.
The clip that went viral, and it was probably our first clip that ever went viral was Dana.
I remember.
Talking
I remember.
about
Talking
the
about
reason-
Platypus, wasn't it?
No. It was,
Oh, no. It was talking about the trades, the crafts.
Yeah, and how they're
right.
disappearing and all that
That
stuff.
did go viral.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
That still gets tons of hits.
Yeah.
Well, it's an absolute truth. I mean, to try and get anything plated anymore, and you've got to look through things like Hemmings Motor News to find those specialties, because getting a car trimmed is a problem. Upholstery, getting gauge work done, all these trades.
Things you'd never think of. Some things you'd never
they're
even
difficult.
think of. Yeah.
And in our modern day, a lot of things can be duplicated with CNC machines, but I don't know. There's, I think, more and more of my generation, or they're dying off, and the kids don't want these old cars anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So most of the kids they're much more into muscle cars, which that's cool.
Sure.
You know.
I wanted to ask you, Dana. I see these YouTube videos quite often with frames being dipped and old cars being dipped. Is that something that can be done in Southern California? Does that exist, or is that all back east, or like who does that? Because it's got to be acid. It's like an acid tank, I guess.
Oh, there are places in LA that do it.
Yeah.
Are there places in LA that do that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
I didn't know if that was part of this. It's getting hard to get that kind of stuff done or not.
Well, I think the reason why that's a little more attainable is that what they dip, you can dip a lot of things other than cars or chassis.
Sure.
So I think that's why, dipping and that kind of thing is probably easier to find.
Yes.
Would you agree with that?
That's true. Yeah.
I guess if you restore old refrigerators or stoves, you could do the
Something
same
like
thing.
that,
It saves all that scraping of the paint, paint removal. Just dip it and it just comes off.
Yep.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah. All right. I think we got everything covered. Dana, thank you again for coming in. We
CJ,
really
it's
appreciate
been
it.
an absolute pleasure. Dan, thank you.
Yeah, always good to have you, Dana.
Always fun.
We got a warning to Chip Foose that he's about to go viral and beat your record.
You're going down, Chip.
Going
You're
down, Chip. Don't forget, like, follow, subscribe. We have our YouTube. You're going to have to fill in for Gabe on this one.
Channel.
There you go. And again, if you go to YouTube, search West of Tulsa Show, and you'll find us. All right.
Yes.
Thanks for watching. We will see you west of Tulsa.